Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm Kurtz, your host. I pray this episode is like a holy IV of hope for your soul. Please help me welcome Dan Esposito to the show. Very excited to have him here today. We had a chance to chat beforehand. I've never met him before, but we have a lot of connections, so it's beautiful. So before we get into your story, would you just be open to sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, the main purpose in my life is to help others figure out chronic pain and strategies to put themselves in better health and really remove what's causing the chronic pain, which I think a lot of people don't think is possible. But, I'm a former NFL player, former atheist. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, degenerative arthritis. I was told I needed both my shoulders and both my knees replaced when I turned 50. And I just did not want to accept that. I was like, how did I go from being so flexible, so fast to literally any movement or even lack of movement was causing me just so much chronic pain, which also caused anxiety and depression and, you
Yeah.
know, just not in my, right place. And so my second son was about to be born
Mhm.
and it was about 3 months away and I was at the gym just struggling. And I just said out loud, I'm going to figure this out. And it was from that point on that my mission it
Mhm.
was to figure out chronic pain. And then, so he's 8. So whatever 8 years ago was, and
Okay.
whatever my age was 8 years ago, I think about 44,
Okay.
45, I was like, I'm gonna figure it out so well and I'm going to get back to competition in terms of track. I ran track and played football
Okay.
in college.
Yeah.
So at 50, when I was supposed to start with the joint replacements, I became a two-time United States track and field masters national champion in sprint events. Last year, I was ranked 15th in the world in my age category. And then a few weeks ago at Penn Relays, I came in third in the men's 100-meter dash. And it's in my age group. So the way
Okay.
USATF Masters works, it's all 5-year increments. So,
Got it.
and
Oh,
I'm at the higher end of that 5-year increment. So,
okay.
yeah. So I knew that as I was creating this method and not even knowing that I was creating it, that if people were going to believe me, I would have to exceed expectations. So as part of
Wow.
my nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
was like, well, where's the top of the mountain and that I can
Right.
reach? And, it became track and field. And so, yeah, so I love competing in it. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean I'm completely free of pain yet. I know that day is coming, but if I would go for a run, it used to be 2 weeks of depression and anxiety and muscle
Good.
soreness and flares and whatever you want to call them,
Oh,
to where it's like, if it's like typically a few hours after that, I'm sore and
mhm.
then I kind of pop back to
Okay.
my, better state. But yeah, and that's it. And I think I mentioned, former atheist and
Yeah.
yeah, so
Well, we'll
that's
definitely go there.
yeah.
There's definitely a few things that I'm seeing where we can go on this journey today, of course, but I just want to really highlight like how you were just like, I kind of refuse to listen to what you're telling me about having to get my joints replaced. And
Yeah.
I would just love to hear, like, at that point, were you kind of all in with the medical establishment, or were you kind of like on the
I
edge
was
of going, what are you
starting,
even talking about? You
yeah, yeah.
know what
I
I'm
was
saying?
starting, yeah, totally. I was starting to lean into the other direction. So the
Mhm.
interesting thing is my stepmom has her doctorate in nutrition,
Mhm.
and she was always, kind of opposite of the medical establishment,
Yeah.
and I thought she was so crazy.
Yeah.
And, as an athlete, you're around your PT crew and your trainers and medical doctors, and they're all telling you this is the way to do things. And I was like, well, obviously they wouldn't go to school for all these years and lead me down the wrong path.
Right.
And, it really started turning around as, I had seen a display at the Franklin Institute here in Philadelphia, and it was the body display or body series. And I saw a cadaver that had a knee replacement. And this
Mhm.
is before I was having all my problems. I was like, gosh, I'm never going to get one of those because, you had a rod jammed into your
Yeah.
shin bone and one up through your femur.
Yeah.
And I had already been through, I think, 10 to 13 surgeries at that point, with just,
Wow.
general football, quote
Mhm.
unquote injuries, but they
Mhm.
weren't. They were, I could explain them, but that'd be boring. And I was just like, wow, none of that's working. And my surgeon who prescribed the shoulder replacements, I said, after my last sort of clean out surgery, I said, what's going on in there? And he goes, oh,
Mhm.
your muscles are just tangled. And I was like, what? Is that even a thing? Like, that doesn't
What?
sound medical.
Yeah.
And another doctor had told me previous to this, and this was really the catalyst that started making me wonder if doctors knew what they were talking about, or surgeons, because I
Mhm.
had a elbow pain that was just persisting, and it was my left elbow. And I said to the doctor, I said, why is this happening? And he told me wear and tear. I was like, yeah, but I'm right-handed. Like there's more wear and tear on my right side, and there's no pain there.
Right.
And it's exactly the opposite. Without movement, these
Mhm.
proteins build up, and they build up around your joints.
Mhm.
And without building them properly, you're not gonna, without the raw materials, you're not gonna build this fascia and collagen
Mhm.
in a way that serves your body. It's actually working against you. And without movement,
Mhm.
when those things are created, the chemical bonds set in. And that's, just think of like glue. Super glue comes out as like a liquid. And then when the
Yeah.
chemical bonds set in, it becomes sticky and gluey.
Mhm.
And, that's what happens internally in the body, almost exactly.
Mm.
And so I went to YouTube. A buddy of mine said, watch this one video. And it was just some guy breaking down the scar tissue. And I was like, all right, let me try that. And then within a
Yeah.
few weeks, that pain went away. I was like, huh. And I wasn't into the whole, chronic pain thing just yet, because it was just my elbow that was hurting at that point.
Okay.
But it was the first thing that made me think that doctors really don't
Mm.
know what they're talking about when it comes to pain and injury.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, just for even the listeners who are wondering, like, what exactly did you do for your elbow then?
Oh, I just
Did
jammed
you
my
take care of it
thumb.
yourself?
Yeah, I just took
Like,
care of
kind of
myself. I
getting
just,
after the fascia and stuff in there?
yeah, I just jammed my thumb into my elbow and started, pumping my arm up and down, my elbow back and forth, and it helped break it down. So fortunately, it didn't set in so bad that it wasn't fixable at that point. But yeah, it was very simple. I mean, it was literally like just a couple of weeks of doing it, and
Yeah.
not even that consistently.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah,
starting to wake up. You're like, nope,
yeah.
I'm not doing this. What was the next part of your discovery with like I like to say bucking up against the medical system.
Yeah. I mean, the next thing was when the doctor told me that the muscles were tangled. And
Right.
it really, and even from that point on, I wasn't completely against it. I would daydream about me just pulling my skin back and reorganizing my muscles. And so,
Interesting.
but,
Wow.
that didn't account for all the cracking and clicking and,
Mhm.
stuff that was going on. I was like, that,
Mhm.
it just doesn't make sense. And,
Yeah.
I kind of just shelved it for a long time. I mean, I didn't even think about it that much. I really honestly thought it was just part of the aging process. And I thought
Mm.
everybody's going through this at my age. And it just turned out it wasn't true. It was, yeah, I mean, when it really started to take over my body, I used to be in banking with Washington Mutual, and then that mortgage industry fell apart. The banking crisis happened, and I got into the energy business. I started a commercial energy brokerage.
Mhm.
And during that time, like I obsess about all the things I want to be successful at, I was like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to sit at home and learn this business and try to find clients. And I was eating like 3 times a week, 2 Domino's pizzas a day.
Oh my gosh.
And that's really ramped up the inflammation in the
Mm.
body. And
Mhm.
looking back, I was like, oh, that's what that feeling was, that I was feeling, that I thought was just this passing thing that was going through. But, as you become inflamed, it lays down these fibrins, which are hard proteins, and then a few other processes within the body that just start causing a very quick
Mhm.
escalation into stiffness and chronic pain.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
then another thing, going to chiropractors, I must have spent 5,000 or so dollars on chiropractors. And at some point, they just couldn't do anything. Like it was just like I was frozen solid. And I was like, well, these are like the professionals that should at least know about it. And they really focus
Right.
on the skeleton system, and that's
Right.
not where the
Mm-hmm.
pain comes from whatsoever. Your skeleton hangs like a Venetian blind, right? It's all tethered from what's above it. And, without your fascia being compromised, it's going to continue to just hang in the place that it's supposed to hang. The problem is all the fascia, that's where all the pain receptors are, and they're 7 times more sensitive, and that's where your joints are. So we just automatically assume our joints have gone bad, and it's really the the fascia that's going bad in that area.
Ever hear something on this show that stirs something deep, like a nudge from God that there's more? That's stirring. It's not random. I'm Kristin Kurtz, host of Hope Unlocked and the founder of New Wings Coaching, and I'm inviting you into a 45-minute unlocking session, a sacred space to press in, hear what heaven is saying, and activate your next bold step. If you're a trailblazer or kingdom voice ready to break free from doubt and live fully alive, this is for you. Book now at newwingscoaching.net/hopeunlocked for special listener pricing. You were born to live uncaged and unapologetically bold. Now back to the show. Yeah. So you started experiencing healing obviously when your elbow, and then like did you find somebody to like help you kind of loosen up the fascia throughout your body, or like what did you do next?
Yeah. So, well, let's go back. I want to go back to my childhood to touch on a
Yeah,
couple things
let's do
because I
that.
think there's a really interesting story
Yeah,
here that leads into a
yeah.
lot of this stuff. So, my mom had been married 3 times, and then my
Okay.
father is amazing. He's the greatest guy in the world, but she
Oh,
left from Philadelphia when we were about 4 and moved back down to Florida with the 3 kids.
okay.
And so then she eventually got married to 2 guys, kind of, when I was younger, and they were both alcoholics
Oh,
and they were very abusive. And, I talk about this because a lot of people say that childhood trauma is the reason you have chronic pain later. There's actually no scientific evidence for that. And if you understand the physiology of the body doesn't store pain, it can
mhm.
store thoughts. And then those thoughts can cause anxiety,
Mhm.
right? But when your diet is not right, you can't control that anxiety because
Mhm.
you have anxiety basically comes from these mast cells. I don't know if you ever heard of mast cell activation
Yeah.
syndrome.
Mhm.
So the mast cells require an enzyme to regulate the amount of histamine that goes off. Histamine puts you in fight or flight and
Mhm.
causes inflammation, which,
Yeah.
can leave behind that hardened protein.
Mhm.
And so, because of folic acid in our diet, which is supposed to mimic folate, it's blocking our body's natural ability to utilize folate to create those enzymes. So
Mhm.
that makes you have this basically a poor histamine response or an
Okay.
over response of histamine, which, once we get into that anxious fight or flight state, we always start trying to figure out who the enemy is. And we always like to point to our parents.
Mhm.
And, prior to all my mental health and chronic pain issues that I was suffering, I
Mhm.
never blamed my parents for anything. But during that time, that's the only people I blamed. But
Yeah.
anyway, so going back to that, because of all that trauma in my life, I thought there can't be a God. Like God would not
Yeah.
do this to me. Like
Right.
I did nothing wrong.
Right.
And I even, there were 2 passages in the Bible that basically solidified my disbelief. And it
Mhm.
was don't eat swine for it's unclean and don't mix linen and wool.
Mhm.
So I thought, how arbitrary are
Mhm.
those 2 rules that they don't make any sense? And that just points to the fact that this book is just this made up set of instructions. Well, the only 2 reasons that made me disbelieve turns out to have massive implications in chronic pain.
Mhm.
So let's just talk about swine real quick.
Yes, please do.
So when you eat swine and some other foods, but swine is the worst, it
Mhm.
causes a process in your body called glycation, right? So it's similar in how it affects your body to inflammation, but what it does, it's when you have a sugar molecule and it interacts with a fat or a protein, it causes glycation, and that's basically the thick film you get when you barbecue something. That's
Mhm.
glycation, right?
Mhm.
So your body can handle 15,000 of these, we'll call them events per day.
Mhm.
If you eat one strip of bacon, it's 30,000. So it's double that effect.
30 seconds.
So yeah, so people who are on these keto diets eating a lot of bacon, they're causing all this glycation inside their body. Now, glycation feeds inflammation or
Mhm.
causes inflammation and feeds reactive oxygen species, which is basically oxidative stress, a free radical going
Mhm.
around doing damage. Now, that free radical causes more inflammation. So it becomes this soup of responses within your body that's contributing to chronic pain. So plus pork has cysts
Mhm.
in it that harbors parasites that can't be
Mhm.
cooked out, and it's a
Yeah.
never-ending decaying meat. So,
Yeah.
rule number one
Right.
that I started back right away is I cut out bacon out of my
Okay.
diet.
You're like, the Bible actually has something good to say
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, don't mix linen and wool. Well, it's interesting. I'm in the energy business, and it turns out that everything is energy. Everything has energy.
Mhm.
Our body resonates at a frequency of like 85 to 100. Sometimes they call it megahertz, and sometimes there's a different. We're just going to say megahertz for
Mhm.
simplicity. So when you wear linen, it's 5,000. So what it's actually doing is constantly donating electrons back to your body,
Mhm.
stabilizing those free radicals,
Mhm.
stopping the oxidative stress.
Mhm.
When you wear wool, it's 5,000 plus megahertz doing the same thing. But when
Yeah.
you mix these two together, these two fabrics, it creates a dead field of energy. So
Mhm.
now it's pulling
Mhm.
electrons out of your body constantly. And not only doing that, which causes oxidative stress, it
Mhm.
also is causing glycation, which is what we just talked about with the pig.
Cool.
And so when you wear polyester clothes, it's 15. So still a lower frequency than your body,
Yeah.
causing disease within the body constantly. And the interesting thing is if you go ground or go earthing with these fabrics on your body, it
Mhm.
actually causes a worse reaction.
Really?
So it's not counterbalancing one another. And
Mhm.
there's a really interesting study by Dr. Heidi Yellen
Mhm.
who talks about the frequency of fabrics, who did this really great study. And
Mhm.
so it's a really good read. It's an
Good.
interesting woman to follow. She's very religious as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
It's interesting because I feel like I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes and I'm just kind of being, I've known that like certain fabrics are better for you, but I'm starting to be like more aware of it now. So
yeah.
maybe for listeners like me, like where do you like what kind of clothes do you wear then? Like where do you buy your clothes? Because a lot of, I work out a lot, so I
Yeah.
think most of the workout clothes that I'm wearing are polyester.
Yeah, Task is a really good one. So I've got some clothes from TASC. Oh gosh, there's a few of them out now, and it's interesting. I do see some religious themed workout gear that is
Mhm.
polyester, and I don't want to yuck their yum and reach
Yeah.
out to them and be like, hey, this would God wouldn't approve. But yeah, there's a bunch of them. I mean, they're a little more expensive, but you're going to
Right.
feel the difference. I mean, so what happens
Mhm.
when these fabrics are pulling these electrons out of your body now needs to use up more ATP to
Mhm.
create new electrons. So instead of just giving you general energy or doing other things, ATP, it's now consumed with the process of trying to create more electrons.
Mhm.
So, a lot of people with chronic pain have they're lethargic all the time. They have low energy, and part of that could be coming from your clothing, your bedding. I mean, look around. Like, tell me what around your home that you sit on or wear is not a polyester fabric.
Right.
So yeah, but you can get them on Amazon. I mean, linen pants on Amazon are like 25, $30. And
Okay.
I wear them around the house. Just cotton in general would be
Yeah.
good. Inorganic cotton is about the same frequency of your body.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
I don't wear a lot of wool, but the cap I have on my head is wool.
Okay.
A major reason for losing hair is oxidative stress because you have free radicals up there. And a lot of people are dealing with neuroinflammation, right? So that's causing free radicals as well. My hair health has improved drastically since I've been kind of consistently wearing this wool cap
Hmm.
on my head. Yeah.
Fascinating. Thank
But
you.
yeah. So there's a lot of places. You just got to Google it.
Yeah.
I mean, on my website, if you went there, I have a little store there that has
Oh,
Amazon affiliate links
oh,
that you
cool.
can kind of
Okay.
click through and find some stuff. Yeah.
Well, we'll for sure get your website later, but if somebody's like, well, what's his website? We'll get it now, and then I'm of course gonna have it in the show notes. But what is your website so they can look that
It's
up?
yeah, it's www.undu.me. So undo.me.
I love that. That's so good. So
Thanks.
let's take it back a few years. I heard you mention you were in the NFL. That's a
Yeah,
pretty big accomplishment. Not many people get to walk that road, right? What
right.
was that road like for you? How did you end up there?
Yeah, so growing up, I was really a baseball player. And then, through, I don't want to, I'm not bragging, but as a child, I tested very high on all the standardized tests. But as you go through life and nobody sits down to do homework with you and you kind of grow up like a
Hmm.
feral cat, you just kind of roam in the streets,
Yeah.
as grades start taking, a
Hmm.
back seat, especially because, I was in 5 elementary schools. And so what was where my energy was is I want to make friends, you
Yeah.
know. And so I knew that I was very athletic. I was
Mhm.
always sort of winning the Presidential Physical Fitness Award and, doing all this great stuff. So sports became like my refuge. So, but as I got into high school, my middle 2 years, sophomore and junior year, I was not eligible to play sports because of grades. And I was in three different high schools, right? So all the curriculums are different and,
Yeah.
all this stuff's going on. But and then by my senior year, I moved back to Philadelphia to live with my father and went out for football. So it was the
Mm.
first time I played organized football was as a senior in high
Really?
school. Yeah. And I got a couple scholarship offers from some really small schools, and most of them were further north than where I was already, and I was not doing that. And so I walked on to a small school here in Pennsylvania, Millersville University, always ranked in the top 20 in terms of Division II schools. And I did not start or even get much playing time
Mhm.
until my senior year. I actually earned the starting position my junior year by a landslide. But the head coach vetoed that the day before the first game because I was a walk on and the two scholarship athletes that I had beaten out were his preference. And so I thought, okay, well, Wednesday I was a starter. Saturday
Mhm.
I'm third string, but I'm sure I'm going to get my carries. And I would get like one or two carries a game. I'd have like a 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown and then never see the ball again.
Oh,
And then senior year,
yeah.
kind of first game, same thing happened. I got zero carries. Second
Wow.
game of the season, the first and second string running back, couldn't get anything going. So they put me in basically in the second half. I had like 136 yards. And then I finally started the fourth game or the third game of my senior year. I was offensive player of the nation that game. And then, had over 1,000 yards in like 6.5 games. And I was very fast. I ran a 4.27 40, 4.4 was like my average or was like my standard time, but I'd been timed in the 4.27 time. And the scouts were coming around and the Redskins signed me to come in as a rookie to try to earn a contract. I earned a contract in camp. And then the first game of my professional football career, the first play, I
Mhm.
broke my jaw in two places. So,
Oh,
yeah, I played the whole game though with a broken jaw in two places. I was not coming out of the
oh my
game.
goodness.
So, yeah. And they released me. They had released me earlier in the year when they signed a veteran running back and then called me back right before mini camp or right before camp, and things were going really well in camp. I was doing really well. And then the broken jaw, I got an injury settlement. The next year, here's an interesting thing,
Yeah.
religious based sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in between my first 2 years in the NFL, I went to get pizza with an ex-girlfriend of mine now. And I said, next, like there was a helmet, like a bubblegum machine with helmets in it. And I said,
Yeah.
whatever team comes out of here is who I'm going to play for next. And the Saints came out, right?
Really?
Which is a
Yeah.
religious theme. And 2 weeks later, or maybe even a week later, my agent called me and said, "Hey, Dan, the Saints want to work you out."
Oh,
I was like,
I love
whoa, like
it.
that's crazy.
It's those
And
moments, right?
yeah, it was sort of one of those first things. I was like, that's serendipity or something else.
Mhm.
And so I was with them. I broke my jaw in camp again. I got punched in practice by a guy that had been beaten all camp. And I came back. They released me the day I came back, and then they signed me back the first week of the regular season.
Yeah.
But it was at this point where injuries were not healing for me. My shoulder, especially, I think it was my right, I don't remember which shoulder it was, but it just would not heal. I could barely do a push-up, but I wasn't going to tell anyone that I was hurt because, you're kind of last guy in camp and you want to make the
Right.
team. But I also think maybe this was the
Mhm.
path for me. This was, I
Right.
got to put this NFL stuff in front of, on my name in order for people to listen to my story.
Mhm.
And then slowly over time, I guess the next, probably, gosh, 15 to 20 years is when the pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Probably about 5 or 6 years after my last NFL play is when I was like, what's happening to my body? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here?
Yeah.
So,
Oh my
yeah.
God. Well, I just had to, I was reminded of a movie I watched last year. Have you seen the movie Greater?
No.
It's about a football player. I highly recommend it. So you
Okay.
watch it and listeners
I
go watch
will.
it.
Yeah.
It's so good. It reminds me a little bit of your story in a different way with
Interesting.
football is the highlight. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you for sharing that part of your story. I just really feel like, you've overcome so much and similarly to me, like I grew up moving a lot and a lot of trauma in my family and it's cool that we're sitting here talking today. I didn't know you before today, and we
Yeah.
have overcome a lot, and we're helping people. So
Right.
God obviously was weaving your story together, right?
Right.
Obviously.
Yep.
I always
Yeah.
say like your moment with the bum, I was gonna say bum gall. I'm verbally dyslexic sometimes, guys. Gumball machine, the
Yeah.
Saints gumball comes out. It's like I have this phrase, like you can't make this stuff up. Like you
Right.
literally can't make this stuff up. So you have some of these moments along the way and what started to shift your perspective. Obviously you had those moments with the Bible that you were like, those are actually true. Like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
came next for you?
Then so the next thing, I'll lead into it with sort of my discoveries along the way. But
Mhm.
so because of all the pizza was causing all the inflammation, part of the inflammation process is when the white, and once again, inflammation, by the way, is healing. It's not your body attacking itself. So I just want to like get that out of the way. It's this body was made to heal. It's not made to be in disease.
Mhm.
So I was having all this inflammation, and part of the cycle of inflammation is the white blood cells are basically killing the thing that shouldn't be inside of you, and it gives off waste, which is lymph, right?
Mhm.
And so, because I had so much inflammation, I had so much lymph happening in my body, and my lymphatic system wasn't keeping up.
Mhm.
And so I was like 265 pounds. My face looked like a bowl, it was a pumpkin. It was so heavy. I'm losing hair. I can't think. I had no motivation. I'm sweating all the time. But, I have a son and I was like, I got to keep pushing through.
Mhm.
And so I was at this event, and a friend of mine had come up to me and she saw that I was limping. My knees were swollen like a couple softballs on either side, and for
Mhm.
8 months. And she said, you should rub castor oil on your knees. And I was like, oh, Lord, here we go. Like another person with these natural remedies.
Yeah.
And so, but I had just started with my I am gonna fix this.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
had already said it. And the thing that I was doing was just stretching and foam rolling. And I
Mm.
thought I was progressing because I'd felt something happening. So I'm telling everyone, you got to foam roll, you got to foam roll. And she's telling me, you got to put castor oil. I'm like, all right, she's telling me with the same conviction that I'm
Yeah.
telling other people. So I
Right.
have to listen to her for people to listen to me.
Yeah. That's good. That's a key
So,
right there. Like, say
yeah,
that again.
I have to listen to her in order for people to listen to me.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And this is the first advice that I've ever taken from probably anyone in my entire life.
For real?
And so, yeah, really, I mean, I was feral, everything was done on my own. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s and,
Yeah.
and it was rough.
Yeah.
But so I went home, I got the castor oil from the pharmacy and I put some in a pan. I heated it up a little
Mm.
bit to thin it out. Then I applied it to my lymphatic areas, my knees, the whole thing. And I had tried probably 15, maybe 10 other things prior to this with zero success. So I
Mhm.
went to bed, woke up the next day, the swelling in my knees was completely gone. And then I just started blowing stuff out of my nose for the next 3 days. It was just consistent.
Really?
The pumpkin face came down, like all the puffiness in my body went away. And I went from having like maybe one clear head day a month to like half the month was clear. And I was like, wow, that's just amazing, right?
Ah,
And
that's
so I still wasn't on a real healing path at this point. I'd had no idea which direction I should go in.
mhm.
So that was in March. And then a few months later, the Phillies were playing and a bunch of friends went and I had a beer and I don't hardly drink, but the beer made me feel really off.
Mm.
And I thought, gosh, maybe I'm acidic because I've been hearing these things about acidity. And
Mhm.
so I got 2 bottles of like high pH water. Now there's some debate on the effectiveness of this stuff, but all I know is it made me feel better
Mm.
immediately. And so I said, I need to find a podcast on proper hydration.
Mm.
So here's another interesting thing. It led me directly to Dr. Mercola, who was
Oh, yeah.
labeled the first quack on Facebook. So you knew he was doing
Yep.
it right. And
Say
his,
that
yeah,
again.
he was
Somebody.
labeled the first quack on Facebook. So you knew that there was some
Yeah.
industry trying to shut him down
Yeah.
for profit. But
Mhm.
the interesting thing is his guest that day was Dr. Zach Bush.
Mm.
Dr. Zach Bush is a very spiritual Christian,
Mhm.
former modern medical institute, guy who's now
Mhm.
gone to natural healing.
Okay.
And he was talking about hydration at the cellular level.
Mhm.
And a guy who got a C in college biology by cheating off the guys in the front row, I was like, I think that cells make up everything. So maybe if I make all my cells healthy, I can
Mhm.
make the rest of my body healthy. And so I started looking at other ways. And so that water, just doing more good spring water just made things more clear.
Mhm.
And then, so the next thing in his podcast about cell health was doing red light therapy, right?
Mm.
So the sun has a range, a wavelength that is near range infrared, and that wavelength penetrates deeper into the skin. And so once again, an energetic response happens that is basically that photon energy is helping break down the things that are causing chronic pain under the skin. And so I would go to a place and I would sit in a red light room for, half an hour and I'd walk away and I'd hear and feel a click and a
Mm.
little bit of looseness. It was just very slight. It was one or two would happen each time I would do it. I eventually bought my own red light and
Okay.
didn't know any of the science behind what was happening. I was just, but then of course I had to go research everything.
Mhm.
So, and so I was like, great, this is another thing I can put into my toolkit.
Mhm.
And from there, I got lucky. A friend of mine told me you should try MSM, which is sulfur. And what it turns out, I'm highly allergic or sensitive to sulfur.
Oh.
Many people are not, but it was causing a lot of click, 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 click.
Mhm.
And so I was
Mhm.
like, okay, great. And so unfortunately, it also caused me a lot more anxiety than I was already dealing with because my body wouldn't clear it out. It would also cause depression because they're both associated with one
Mhm.
another. So, it got lucky, sort of lucky with that. And then, gosh, what was the next thing that happened? Oh gosh, I can't remember, but I do know that one of the things in the series was on oxalic acid,
Mm,
and I had been juicing spinach and beets,
mm,
and it turns out those plants have a defense chemical in them called oxalic acid that creates a kidney stone. But
mm,
when you juice them, they leak out through your gut and then
mm,
they get into your cells.
mm,
They depolarize the cell, turn it into a bone producing cell. They
mm,
also are basically kidney stones all throughout your soft tissue, causing tearing within the muscles and a bunch of other
mhm,
bad things. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm feeling. Oh, when I acupuncture myself, I had started acupuncturing myself, which, acupuncture is expensive and I wanted to mitigate those costs. And I
mhm,
would come across these little something that I didn't know what it was, calcium or, whatever it was, but it was so painful. And
mm,
so I was not going to listen to that podcast, and something told me I had to listen to it.
mm,
And so I did, and then I did the cleanse, which is basically 5 bags of lemon squeezed and adding some binders like calcium citrate. And so it
mhm.
drew all of these stones out of my body through my pores, through my skin. It's pretty wild once you do it. Yeah.
5 bags of lemons.
Yeah, you get, and that'll make about 1 pitcher of pure lemon juice. And you can add some water to it as well, but you really want that citric acid
Mhm.
in there because that's what's helping disrupt the bonds that hold the oxalate together. Super,
And are you
super
drinking it
effective.
like all in one shot?
No, no, it's
Okay.
over
I'm
three, four
like,
days. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Like, wow, that's very tart.
Aggressive. Yeah, yeah. And oh, so the other thing was that I skipped over was fasting. So the friend who told me, this is another biblical one, right? So the
Mhm.
friend that told me to rub castor oils challenged me to do a 3-day fast. So I was like, oh, if this guy can do it, I can do it. And she's
Right.
challenging me to do it, so I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
at day 2, click, 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 like all over the body. I was like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, what is this? Now, fasting's very hard, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you what was happening during that process. So,
Mhm.
your body has enzymes that are stored in the liver. And so, those enzymes' main function is to help digest food, right?
Mhm.
Break down the proteins and stuff in the food. But when the body is starved or fasted, those enzymes still need that protein. So it's going to release from your liver at like day 1.5 and start looking for proteins in the body to cleave the chemical bond, which is how it's held together. It's like the glue of the protein.
Mhm.
So it cleaves the chemical bond of fibrin, which is, you have fibrin is, you can kind of call it scar tissue or fibrosis. They more attribute that to collagen, but those two things work together.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I'm feeling all this clicking and loosening happening in my back. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I need to read the Bible now
Yeah.
because there are all these health things that are
Yeah.
actually working within the Bible. And the CIA has on their website that this is a container that needs to stay healthy for what's inside. That's what the CIA says about the human body.
Mhm.
So I went, started listening. I started with the Old Testament and would put it on, my headphones at night and I would listen to it. And the funny thing is, if you can't get to sleep, for me at least, the Bible puts me to sleep all the time. And I don't mean in a
Yeah.
bad way.
No,
My
it's true.
mind stops
It's
racing.
true.
Like,
Yeah.
you're listening to these stories and you're comfortable. And for
Yeah.
some reason, I fall asleep
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah.
So, I just, yeah, just started getting into the Bible. But the real change came,
Mhm.
like the real thing where I was like, okay, this is undeniable. This isn't just accident.
Mhm.
So at this point, I had been focusing on collagen and fascia. I didn't even know what a fibrin was.
Mhm.
And so I'm at this event that one of our suppliers in my energy business, Shell Energy, invited us to because we qualified for it.
Mhm.
They held it up in the Ozarks and everyone got food poisoning. And I was like, gosh, well, and throwing up everything. And I was like, well, gosh, why did everyone get food poisoning? And I said, I'm going to figure out what everyone ate yesterday. I knew that they served pineapple. It was the first thing I thought of.
Mhm.
And something inside of me told that little voice that told you not to go and get that
Yeah.
procedure or whatever. It was the same kind of voice that said pineapple contains bromelain.
Probably. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what's bromelain? Like
Yeah.
who said that? You
Yeah.
know? And so I immediately Googled bromelain and it said bromelain is something that farmers use to get rid of fibrosis in
Mhm.
farm animals. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I, I was like, that's crazy. I need like how did that all line up perfectly? It was the
Right.
first thing I thought of. I heard that voice. It brought
Mhm.
me right to that
Yep.
article or whatever
Yeah.
it was, and I came home and if people could see behind me, I have two spice racks filled with supplements, right? And I kind of
Okay.
microdose a lot of them, but
Yeah.
I knew nothing about enzymes at this point,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And so I added pineapple powder into my regimen
Mhm.
and I noticed a lot of clicking. And so these enzymes in the pineapple
Yeah.
mimic the enzymes that your body has in its liver and basically does the similar thing where it's cleaving those chemical bonds of the couple of the things that are causing pain, scar tissue, fibrins, fibrosis, whatever you want to call it. And it's also part of a protocol that is very well known that helps get rid of the side effects of the shot that a lot of people got. Because
Yeah.
what's happening there is most people are getting these blood clots, which is becomes a fibrin.
Yeah.
And so now it helps the body break those down. But it's not actually removing them. It breaks the bond, which then makes it soluble to the body. And then the body sends different resources there to now, like little construction workers called mechanoreceptors and other things that now move that stuff out of the body through the interstitium and then eventually through the lymphatic system.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was at that point, I was like, this is undeniable. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, there's
Right.
no doubt. And then I just had to really get in touch with God at that
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
I think that the grounding and the earthing and the meditation and then the eventual praying and
Mhm.
asking the universe for things and they were delivered to me, it was just like, okay, this is my father is going to be very happy because he's been telling me he's been praying for me for so many years that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So how long ago, like, did you have this, like, I guess you could say the beginnings of what I would call like an encounter with God, where he's just kind of leading you along the way. And when I hear click, it's like click in, click in. It's like you were
Yeah,
clicking out, but there was some things clicking in for you too.
yeah, 100%. It was gradual. I mean, I think it's probably, I'd say we're probably about 2 to 3 years into where I just completely accepted it, not
Mhm.
to where I was just seeing signs that it was like, okay, this is obviously the way to go. And then after that point,
Mhm.
life just became so much easier.
Yeah.
Worrying
Yeah.
stopped. Me trying to force the world in a specific direction
Mhm.
stopped.
Mhm.
It just became an ease within my mind that was long overdue.
Yeah. And how many
Yeah.
people need that prescription,
So many. So,
right?
so yeah.
Right?
I mean, fortunately, most of your listeners are Christian, but like I
Yeah.
could debunk evolution. I think we talked about it like so
Mhm.
easily. It's
Yeah.
very easily debunked, and most scientists don't even accept it, but it's been persistent for so long that,
Yeah.
people just buy into it because, it's just a message that we hear constantly.
Constantly. I mean,
Yeah.
the school systems, the education, it's pumped into you, just like the medical system. It's like,
Yeah.
here's what we're gonna feed you. You need to listen.
Poorest man who invented the modern day education system homeschooled his children.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Maybe I did. If I did, I maybe forgot. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Well, I would love for you to share. I know you'd mentioned to me that you have a supplement that you created that could help somebody that did get the shot because I'm very passionate about. I had a very strong voice during that time, and we're talking about the COVID shot, and if I get thrown off because of saying that word, go for it, Laura. Like whatever.
Yeah.
But you did have something that you helped. I feel like obviously God probably gave you help with this formulation
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
there's so many people that unfortunately took it. I actually interviewed somebody. The interview hasn't launched yet, but she actually was injured. And so I'm always like open ears to things that
Yeah.
people have created or have found. different resources. So would you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the undo method, which is like the blanket, right? It really consists of two things. It's an educational piece that I created, which
Hmm.
is the undo method playbook, kind of fits the football theme, with the offenders in there. And then there's the supplement, which is kind of part two, or sometimes it's the way people get interested in the actual method because the supplement is working for them. But so I just want to talk about the undo method first, real quick.
Yeah.
So what I do is I break down what the major causes of pain for the majority of people, right? I'm not going to, this isn't a panacea. It's a different perspective, a natural perspective to looking into what is more than likely actually causing pain. So I just want to talk about those pain makers real quick, or the offenders real quick.
Yeah.
Obviously, diet is one of them. You know, what you don't eat and what you do eat is super, super important because you need to have the foundation for your body to be able to have all of its processes working correctly. And there's 90 things out there. There's 12 nutrients, 16 nutrients, 12 amino acids,
Mhm.
3 fats, and a whole bunch of minerals. I think it's like 18 or something like that. So that should be the foundation for anybody's diet.
Mhm.
Outside of that, you need nothing else. Literally need nothing else. The body will synthesize the rest of what it needs. But because of 75% of our food is highly processed, every bite you take is inflammatory, right?
Mhm.
Which causes inflammation. So that's offender number one, really, physical offender number one. So that leaves behind a clot, which becomes a hardened protein, which medicine will tell you is insoluble. Well, it is insoluble until it's cleaved at the chemical bond, and then medicine will tell you, oh yeah, then it's soluble.
Mhm.
Every inflammation response comes with a collagen response, and you need 4 amino acids and 4 cofactors. The cofactors tell the amino acids to build the collagen correctly. So every time you have an inflammation event, you have a collagen event. And
Mhm.
collagen is living inside your body, resynthesizing constantly. If you don't have the 4 cofactors, it's going to turn into glue. Right? Your collagen will become glue. And those strands of muscle fiber, that thickened muscle fiber, is all glued up together with unhealthy collagen, right? So that's one and two. And then there's oxidative stress, right? We talked about that before, where inflammation can cause it, your fabrics can cause it, smoking can, lots of different things can cause it. And then there's calcification, right? And that's basically a mineral management problem where calcium gets into the soft tissues, is not directed to the bones. And then there's glycation, which we talked about, and then there's the oxalates. So I break those down very in depth.
Mhm.
Everything is backed by scientific studies. It's not me just reading a bunch of articles and saying, hey, you should
Right.
try this, right?
Yeah.
And then it talks about some natural ways or practices that you can employ, like earthing. Like, why does earthing work? Why does breathing through your nose work to slow down inflammation?
Mhm.
Phototherapy, sunlight or near range infrared, and, a few other things. So that's all that stuff. And then I tell you which foods you can get these catalysts from, right? The catalyst is the thing that's ungluing, quote unquote, the thing that's causing the pain. So the supplement itself is called flexibility fuel. And so it's an essential amino acid based supplement, but then there's a bunch of different other compounds or nutrients in them that address each one of these offenders
Mm.
at the chemical bond or through their electrostatic interaction. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, and I'll tell you the ingredients. Says it's, if someone can't, doesn't want to buy it from me, they can easily go get these things on Amazon. They're all natural. So bee propolis, right? That's what the bees build the
Mhm.
honeycomb with. That helps break down scar tissue, the collagen. It also prevents it from sticking together. There's the enzymes in it from pineapple, right? That helps the
Mhm.
body. It's a catalyst for the fibrin. There's alpha lipoic acid, which is the universal antioxidant. So it's going to help repair or, you know, add an electron to that free radical. There's rutin in it, which helps the body break down glycation. There's malic acid in it, which is really used as a sweetener, but it has another effect, which helps break down or carve off those oxalates that we talked about. And then there's benfotiamine, which is the precursor to the protein, the myelin protein that's around the pain receptors, the nerve,
Mhm.
part of your central nervous system are nociceptors, right? That is where all pain comes from, are nociceptors.
Mhm.
And so when those are aggravated or that myelin sheath is worn down,
Mhm.
you're going to experience more pain, more consistent pain. And then there's a thing called PEA in there that mitigates the cytokine release, which is basically the beginning stage of inflammation, which then leads to the C-reactive proteins, which most people are, when they have a lot of C-reactive proteins, they're given a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis.
Mm.
So, which just because they're only measuring that doesn't mean the rest of the cycle isn't going to complete itself. It's going to still create a fibrin. It's still going to create lymph. It's still going to go through the entire cycle. But yeah, and it's very easy. I mean, it's a fruit punch flavored supplement. I've got, a whole bunch of former NFL players taking it with really
Yeah.
good results. People who have fibromyalgia, people who have just general joint pain,
Mhm.
stiffness, etc. It's really helping them quite a bit. And the reorder rate is great. It's just the struggle is because there's so many people out there, and I'm not promising anything. I'm just promising
Yeah.
you that the ingredients in there are shown to do certain things
Yeah.
to the body, right? But getting people to try it because there's so many things out there that they've tried and had no effect
Right.
whatsoever. My supplement seems to have a very quick effect for most people within a week or so. And even sometimes their first drink, they're like, I heard some clicking. And once again, it's not a cure,
Right.
treatment, diagnosis for any
Right.
disease. It's
Yeah.
it's helping the body
Yeah.
make these things happen. Yeah.
And what is the name of it?
Flexibility fuel.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you told me before we got started and hit record that there's a label on there that I loved, like part of the label.
Oh yeah, so in the method in the educational program, I talk about potential side effects that any of the supplements can cause.
Mhm.
And so I always list the last side effect as hope.
Yeah. Perfect.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's why you're here today.
yeah.
I believe part of it, not just that part of it, but I love that. Well, I just want to say, like, I don't know if you watched the Kentucky Derby. I didn't, but I saw
It,
some clips of this horse, the Golden Trophy. Is that the name?
was that the one that won?
Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
last place,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Last place. And there's a verse in the Bible, the last will be first. So, you've overcome so much. And I just feel like just because I love overcomer stories. I love the underdogs. I love the ones that, you said I got a C in, science class because you were cheating. And now
yeah.
you guys are listening.
You're right,
He,
right.
he's obviously this is kind of beyond a natural ability. Like I believe that God is giving you, and He's going to continue to increase in you as
Yeah.
you lean into Him, right? Because
An
He
int
gives you
in,
the wisdom.
yeah, an interesting thing at the beginning of all of this, I was like, I'm so brilliant, I'm so smart. And then it's changed to like, wow, I did none of this. Like this was
Yeah,
like obviously God's doing because
yeah,
I'm not, I mean, I'm smart, but like
yeah. Like
the
this is
way that
beyond.
the questions came to me that I was able to then research
Mhm.
was like, I rarely went down the wrong path. I think
Yeah,
sulfur was the only one. It was only the wrong path for me. For other people, it's
sure.
probably going to be amazing. It's just that if you do notice that you have a reaction, then don't do the
Yeah,
sulfur. But
yeah.
yeah, it was, I mean, I just was able to formulate the right questions
Mhm.
that led me to this discovery.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, we're going to close up today. Thank you so much for having just your heart to share your story. And as we close, I do this podcast for the one, and the Lord's actually called it a seed cast. So if you could just think of one person who's listening in today, do you have any other like words of just hope or encouragement for them? Any words of wisdom on their journey? What would you
So,
say to that?
well, one, you have to ask for God's help, right?
Hmm.
I think you have to be vocal about it. I do want to talk about one thing, though, that I think is going to help tons of people because a lot of neuroinflammation and just inflammation in
Yeah.
general, and this overused term of autoimmunity, Autoimmunity in most cases is a guess by doctors. To actually have an autoimmune diagnosis, you have to have a biopsy and find a T cell in healthy tissue, right? And that's rare. So
Mhm.
they just say, yeah, we don't find it there, but you're presenting as autoimmune. Well, if your immune response starts at the cellular level, it's really important to make sure that you have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega 3s, which are not pro-inflammatory, to omega 6s, which is pro-inflammatory. And fatty fish, or an omega 3 supplement is a way to change that because the body will naturally displace the omega 6 with the omega 3. The average American, instead of a 1-to-1 ratio, has a 15-to-1 ratio of highly inflammatory omega 6s. So if you're looking to just start with your first supplement or your first sort of strategy,
Yeah.
incorporate fish, Jesus, into your diet,
Yeah.
and touch your feet on the earth. That's so important, is to do those two things. I mean, touching your feet on the earth is free.
Mm,
So,
gotta love
yeah,
free. Free always fits in my budget.
yeah.
I
And
do want to, and
fasting is better than
free
free
too.
because you're
Yeah.
not eating anything. You're
Yeah.
actually saving money as fasting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Somebody might be wondering, like, and you don't have to, but do you recommend a specific omega-3 for somebody to try, like a specific brand? Because just because there's so much out there and you're
Yeah.
well researched, right?
So I don't have a brand, but you want to make sure that it's wild caught fish.
Hmm.
And you want to make sure that they've taken the vitamin A out of there because if you take like cod liver oil, right, they haven't taken the vitamin A out of there and you can do too much of it. It's toxic for the liver. So most supplements, just omega-3 supplements, have already done that. But you just want to make sure you find one that's ocean caught, not farm
Okay.
raised, fish, because that's just disgusting.
Yeah, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on today. I am going to close with the Hope Unlocked anchoring verse, which is, May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. And that's Romans 15:13. So thank you, Dan, for being a brave voice who's setting others free. I'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.